Rose, last week we saw NATO jets shooting down Russian drones over Poland. We saw incursions into Romania. Is this a big escalation or is this a one-off? What does it mean?
I definitely think that Russia was testing NATO on this occasion because 19 drones got into Polish airspace. So Putin was trying to test NATO and see how NATO would react. But I have to say, there have been some accidental incursions now for over a year into Romanian territory, for example. Actually, Poland suffered also when some fragments of Ukrainian air defense missiles fell onto Polish territory and killed a couple of farmers. So that was a couple of years ago. So these kinds of incidents, it's a war zone. Unfortunately, they have been happening. But the great thing about the response to this big Russian incursion into Poland was that NATO responded immediately with a combined response from several NATO member states, and it was very impressive. It's exactly the way that NATO has been patrolling the Baltic airspace. So we call Baltic air patrolling a routine thing now. I'm not saying 19 drones over Poland is routine, but NATO is well trained for these kinds of incidents.
Yeah. And how has the relationship with our European allies and NATO allies been under this Trump administration compared to the first one? And how much has the Ukraine war changed that dynamic?
Well, you know, I was Deputy Secretary General of NATO during Trump's first term in office, and it was a shock to the NATO allies because he came to Brussels and said, you guys are freeloading on the United States, and unless you pay up, I'm not going to support you anymore, I'm not going to defend you. And this was a real shock to the NATO allies. But it caused them to pay attention, and they started putting more money into their defense budgets. Then the momentum really picked up when Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine a second time in February of 2022. So now the NATO allies get it, and they are spending more money on their own defense. In his second term in office, Trump has pushed this message harder, but the NATO allies are ready now. So there's been a big sea change since his first administration.
And why should issues around NATO and European security matter to people here in Cleveland and Northeast Ohio?
Well, we've unfortunately got two big autocrats now. We have Vladimir Putin in Russia and Xi Jinping in China. Both have aggressive tendencies. We saw this huge parade in Beijing just the week before last with the most modern of Chinese air equipment and other kinds of weapon systems. It's clear China was delivering a message to the United States. So the wealth that the United States has is its allies. Its allies in NATO and its allies in Asia, and they help us to defend our interests as well as their own. So I'm really glad that we have our allies across the world, and I think for Cleveland it should be the same kind of calculus.